When we went into the picture, there were two givens. The two givens were Christopher Walken and Chris Christopherson. And we said, okay, who's going to play the girl? A list was drawn up. All of the major female stars of the moment were on that list. Everybody kept saying no. Suddenly, we heard this name, Isabelle Huppert.
When Michael said he wanted Isabelle Huppert, the question that was asked him, I'm sure by Stephen and I know by me, was, how's her English? He said, oh, speaks it like we do.
Excusez-moi. Bonjour.
I thought it made absolutely no sense to have a French actress playing the madam of a bordello in Wyoming in the 19th century. But Michael wanted this actress. We were told this was the only actress. Suddenly, Jane Fonda had said no, Diane Keaton had said no, everybody else had said, so it was going to have to be Isabelle Huppert.
Bachenfield offered Cimino a compromise. They'd fly to Paris, listen to Huppert read. If they could understand her English, fine. If not, Cimino would have to cast someone else for his female lead. He agreed to the deal.
Isabelle Huppert read for the role. I thought she was dead wrong. And we said to Michael, Michael, it's not going to work. She can't speak English that we can understand and that an audience is going to be able to understand. Yes, maybe she can work on it and so on, but the answer is no.
My phone rang a couple of days later. It was Cimino on the phone, and he said, I've been thinking about that, and it's still Isabelle Huppert. And I said, you know, this is a problem now because this is no longer about Isabelle Huppert. This is now about your word. You and I had an arrangement which now doesn't mean anything. He said, what's your point? I said, my point is this, I'll give you 48 hours to tell me you didn't mean this phone call, or I'm gonna do my level best to make sure that we never make this movie. He told me to go f myself and hung up.
At United Artists, the man who held ultimate authority over which films got made was Andy Albeck. Little more than a glorified accountant, Albeck was the man Transamerica had placed atop UA after Arthur Krim quit. Unlike Krim, Albeck made sense of the movie business through spreadsheets. He placed his faith in numbers. This made him the perfect studio head for Transamerica and the worst one possible for United Artists.
Andy says, so David, what is your problem with the movie? I said, my problem with the movie is I no longer know what his word means, Andy, and I don't know what the movie could cost. I don't know anything anymore because of what just happened. I said, David, what's your worst number? I said, Andy, you know, we're waiting for a budget. It could be 11.5, but after today, I know I could pick a number. 20. Oh, okay. Norbert, David says 20. What do you think? Norbert says, I can cover 20 out of foreign. And he says that Isabelle Huppert is not a problem for him. Everybody likes that in foreign. So Andy says, so David, I mean, look what we have here. I mean, Norbert says he can cover the entire worst case number you have out of foreign, and he likes Isabelle Huppert. So we don't have a problem, right? So I called Michael, and I told him that, and he was not surprised.
I'm afraid to look. Silly, isn't it?
Nah, I'll bring it out to you.
I personally believe she's wonderful in the picture. But the important factor, David is absolutely right, the important factor was the psychological power play that was being conducted there, and Michael won it.
A few months after Cimino won the power struggle to cast Isabelle Huppert, his coronation as the newest king of Hollywood was affirmed. The Deer Hunter took home 5 Academy Awards, including one for Best Director and another for Best Picture. Exactly 1 week later, Michael Cimino began filming Heaven's Gate.
I'm not used to seeing 57 takes. I'm really not. I'm not used to doing a minimum of 32 takes.
What does obsessed with detail mean? one is recreating a period, and one hopes that one doesn't make a mistake, so that someone in the audience says, aha, that didn't exist then, or and it jeopardizes, mistakes like that can jeopardize the audience's belief in the picture, and then the story is thrown in jeopardy and the whole movie is thrown into jeopardy. So if that is obsessive, then I'm guilty of that.
On April 16th, 1979, 1 week to the day after he won the Academy Award for Best Director, Michael Cimino began principal photography on Heaven's Gate. Cimino's ambition for his new film was not small. Heaven's Gate was going to be the Gone with the Wind, the Dr. Zhivago, the Lawrence of Arabia of the American West. It would be a towering achievement, the best Western ever made. For Michael Cimino believed that this was his moment, that Heaven's Gate would seal his place in cinematic history. He was half right. The scale of production on Heaven's Gate was immense. Whole towns were taken over for weeks at a time and converted into fully functioning period sets. Over 1,200 extras from Montana and Idaho, including many who had genuine Slovakian and Ukrainian accents, were hired. But it was not scale that Cimino was after. It was authenticity. He intended for his audience to genuinely be transported back to the West of the 1890s. His picture was going to be real, or as real as he could make it.
He created something that we fondly called Camp Cimino. Have you heard about this? 7 o'clock, you go and you take riding lessons. And then at 9 o'clock, you have cockfighting lessons. Then you have your Yugoslavian, your Slavic dialect lesson.
I mean, we had a bus that picked us up in the morning, and the first thing we did is we would go shooting off rounds of blanks. We had blank gun lessons. Then, after that, we went riding. We had riding lessons. And then after that, we went and had roller skating lessons.
I had to dance. I must have waltzed across Texas. By the end of the thing, I had to take dance lessons every day, waltzing lessons, and roller skating. God, I almost killed myself on that roller skating scene.
I had the period roller skates for him, strapped them on. They had instructors, and they'd skate for a couple of hours a day for maybe a week or 2 weeks until they were ready and they could do it.
It was taxing, but I think that was a good example where like everybody sort of like just gave what they could, because it just seemed exciting and wonderful looking, and it sort of, even when you were about to drop from heat exhaustion, you just would love to see how this thing is finally going to turn out.
And this is really true, since they really have this kind of thing where the cowboys would just come in and scrape the cow off their boots and lash these wheels on their feet and get drunk. Can you imagine what that must have been like? God. We all learned for that. We could skate backwards. We could waltz on skates. You know, we had a great time on that.
And we did that for like at least 6 weeks before I ever shot a single thing. I was really, literally, we called it Camp Cimino.
While the size and scope of Cimino's epic was impressive, it was not extraordinary. Hundreds, if not thousands, of films, from Ben-Hur to Close Encounters, had been made on such a massive scale. What separated Heaven's Gate from almost every film that came before or after it was the extreme, almost fanatic attention to detail its director paid to every single shot.
It was very unusual the way he worked. He would actually paint by selecting extras and put them into the right place in the set, like pretty much like a painter would paint them. He painted by picking up people and put them into the right place.
He would line up all the extras and go down the line, picking the right people for that particular scene. And it took time, you know, a couple of hours to select maybe 50 people. No, you don't stand there. You stand over there next to her, and you come over here.
There's an armed mob of paid men about to invade your county.
Then, once we started to shoot, you know, sometimes we would go for 3 takes, sometimes we would go for 10 takes. And many, many times we had to go for 40 takes.